Hello, my name is Ella Feldman. I'm a junior at Edwardsville High School. I'm currently 16. And my design project is over a safe, sensory friendly, and accessible mask alternative for people with disabilities who cannot wear masks. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Julie Dahl for her guidance in creating this project. I wish to show my appreciation to Marley Grazer and Bill Wedler for their very generous assistance and help within the 3D printing of the physical model of this design. And I would also like to thank my mom and dad, of course, for supporting me throughout this project. The purpose of this project. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many people with disabilities and sensory sensitivities have been affected by the need to wear masks. Most have had to choose between being extremely uncomfortable in a mask all day, not wearing a mask and risking their safety, or wearing a plastic shield and hoping it provides them with enough safety from others. I believe there should be more options. The purpose of this project is to design and create a structure that can cover the face without making contact and causing discomfort for people with sensory sensitivities while being safe and accessible. This idea first came to me when we went back to school after one of the very, very common online learning situations we've had to dealt with in the past last year. I used to spend a lot of time in the special needs classrooms my freshman year, and once the pandemic hit, I wasn't really able to go down there, especially with remote learning and all that. But once I was finally able to get back down there, when it was like all safe to be able to go to other classrooms, of course, safely, we were down there 6 feet apart and all the guidelines. I noticed that there were a few students who weren't wearing masks at all because they were unable to handle or certain things. Just there were certain disabilities they had that it was not comfortable for them to be in a mask all day. And it also made me consider that there were probably even more students out that were online learning because their parents were scared to send them to school without wearing a mask or just for their safety in general. So I really wanted to be able to help these students who couldn't wear a mask at all or even a face shield because it was just causing too many sensory issues and it was risking their safety. Some general background: a person who struggles with sensory sensitivity typically has sensory processing disorder. There are many aspects to sensory processing disorder. One of the specific aspects that I have been focusing on is tactile sensitivity, which can cause a person to feel a strange, uncomfortable, or even painful sensation from physical touch, including like fabrics, really any objects. It varies from person to person, but specifically people who have that tactile sensitivity to masks are my audience, I guess, my main, I don't want to say clientele because I'm not trying to sell a product, but yeah. The best treatment for tactile sensitivity is occupational therapy. There is no permanent way to eliminate tactile sensitivity or sensory processing disorder, and it is very common to find sensory processing disorder in kids and adults with autism. Students who are unable to go to school because of the risk of not wearing masks are losing so many important things for their growth and development, including speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, psychological services, which all have been provided by schools, as well as social interaction just within friends and just like going to school and seeing all your friends every day, hands-on learning opportunities, and generally just a good education. Remote learning and online learning is not a good option to this problem to this issue where people can't go to school because it's too much of a safety risk to go without wearing a mask because it takes so much out of their daily, it completely switches up their daily routine, which routine can be very important to certain students with disabilities. And it just takes away from their education, which really, it's not fair because it's not fair to students with disabilities to have to stay home because their parents or they don't feel safe going to school. So that was really where I drew my inspiration from. I wanted to give anybody, just even one person who was struggling with this, who just wanted to be able to go to school but couldn't because of the safety risk. I just wanted to help those people. According to a study done on the transmission of cough particles, where they had two sides, they had a transmitter and they had a receiver. They tested different scenarios with a mask and a face shield. They found when the receiver of the cough particles wore a mask, they had a 21.7% reduction compared to no protection at all from either sides. And when they wore a face shield, the receiver wore a face shield, there was a 54.7% reduction factor. When the emitter wore a mask or face shield, there was a 96.7% reduction factor compared to having no protection from either side. The safest protection, of course, from cough particles is if both the emitter and the receiver wear protection to obtain a reduction factor between 97 and 98%. But as of December 2021, which is not going to be the same as now, but about 44% of the United States population did not wear a mask. So an individual who is unable to wear a mask cannot rely on other people to wear masks to protect them because of the choices that people have made to not wear a mask, even though they are able to. So the objectives for this design. I wanted this design to be sensory friendly, accessible to anybody who wanted the final design, and safe. Going into this, I was going to make it sensory friendly by avoiding contact with most or all of the face. I was going to make it accessible by designing it to fit a standard surgical mask and creating it with only materials that could be publicly accessed or available, and make it safe by making it better than wearing no protection, no mask or face shield at all. Going into this, I was not trying to make anything that was equivalent to a mask or equivalent to a face shield or better in any means. I just wanted something that was going to be better than nothing. The digital model. So the digital model was more of a 3D SketchUp, just so I could kind of figure out where I was going. This was not printed at all. This was not really tested. It was just to get an idea and get a visual of what I wanted. So it features an octagon shape to cover the mouth and nose area safely. It has two hooks on each side to attach the mask to, and two extended arms on each side of the model. But there is no way to really attach the design to the face. The extended arms, knowing what I know now from what I've done with the other designs and seeing my final design, I know this would not have been able to hold on to the face in any way, as well as the octagon shape would have blocked the vision because of just the way faces are shaped. Moving on to physical model 1, you can see I made it out of 20 gauge metal wire, 10 thick skewer sticks, and a hot glue gun, which was safely used. It features a hexagonal shape to improve vision, two extended arms on each side that wrap around the ear. The successes and the problems. So the successes of the physical model 1, the hexagon shape, as I mentioned just a second ago, it prevents vision from being impacted. It limits the contact, more or less, it limits the contact with the face to just the ears. But I did later realize that to make this design possible with, I guess, gravity in general, it will need to be worn with part of the mask resting on the nose and the ears, because I don't know why I didn't think about this when I was going into it, but gravity does push the mask down. The wire around the ears was not comfortable. Now, I will mention I did test this just by putting it on my face, seeing and concluding where stuff might be uncomfortable or unsafe. So the wire around the ears was not comfortable. The design fell down so that the top of the design was touching the nose. The length of the structure was not long enough, and it caused the mask to be too close to the face. the structure was too close to the face, making the standard mask too close to the face, where it could have impacted day to day. Day to day, it would have been too close. It would have touched the face occasionally, which is something I really wanted to avoid. I really did not want the mask to touch the face at all. And it did not have a way to attach the mask to the structure. So as I was testing this, I was kind of taping the mask on, which is not effective and not useful for day-to-day use. The side arms wrapped in the side arms wrapped around the wire did touch the face, which even without the wire, with the wire would not have been comfortable at all. Without the wire, it was still, with the sticks on the side, would not have been comfortable. Physical model 2 is very different, very much improved from the first physical model. It is made out of thick skewer sticks, hot glue, plastic beads, and elastic. It completely eliminated the use of metal wire. There are 2 extra centimeters on each side. It removed the 2 bottom sticks and added elastic that wraps around the head instead. And there is a section of the model for the nose to rest on. Successes and problems. So the sides on the successes, the sides no longer touch the face, which was very good because it eliminated more contact that the design would have had on the face. It completely eliminated the wire, which would which in the final design wouldn't have mattered, but in the physical model, it did matter because the wire was irritating for me and just for use. It better secured the head. It was better secured to the head using elastic. And there was the added section for the nose. There was an added section for the nose to rest on, which there was not in the previous one, which was very helpful in kind of spacing it out from the face and not making the mask too close to the face. And the problems, the nose section was uncomfortable. Something needed to be added to it to change it up. There was still no way to attach the mask to the design. Again, I was just kind of sitting there taping it on when I was testing it. I had trouble getting a standard mask to fit the design. So I did have to use 2 masks to fully cover the design, which I realized is just something it's just gonna have to be with the way standard masks are designed. They're not designed to fit my model, they're designed to fit a face. So it is not going to fit the model with just 1 standard mask. The prototype. So the prototype, I used the Tinkercad website and a 3D printer, specifically the one from SIUE. I was able to get in contact with Bill Weidler, who runs the Maker Lab at SIUE, Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville, and he was able to help me get my model printed. So this was heavily based on the second physical model on the previous slide. I added a U-shaped piece to rest on the nose, similar to a pair of glasses, which was able to improve the comfort. And there were hooks added to attach 2 standard masks to. Successes, which one of the big successes of this design, of the prototype for me, was I was able to get a physical 3D print. That was definitely something I was concerned about. I didn't know how I was going to print. It had all been something, it all been on the computer at this point, besides the physical models, which I created out of like nothing related to 3D printing. So being able to 3D print it was definitely it made me more confident in my design because I knew this is going to work. And it added the added U shape to the nose piece was more comfortable, as I mentioned previously. Problems, the extended arms were very difficult to print, which I'll talk about on the next slide. The thickness overall was just not ideal for a long-lasting design. The thickness, I don't know if you can tell through the camera, but it's not very thick at all. It's very flimsy. The top of these printed weirdly, but like it's very shaky, very flimsy. It would not have lasted a long time. And the nose piece also, extended out too far, causing too much of a gap. And I did later realize that I think, so there's an angle here to these pieces for the face, but I later realized that this was also a cause of the gap, because when this is straight, when these extended arms are straight to the face, the bottom chin part is facing out too much, causing too much of a gap. So, and I'll talk about the printing, and then I'll show you how I adjusted this angle and this gap on my final design. So if you can see the print one, some of these prints turned out very interesting. Print one, Bill Weidler from SIUE, he was very helpful in printing this. He did all the printing. I did none of the printing. He discussed with me, we had a conversation about how he printed it, but I did not do the printing myself, so I'm not 100% sure on all the details of all the printing, especially the structural support, but print one was printed with 0 structural support, but the way I designed it on the way my file was set up, it needed a lot more structural support. So you can see in print 3, that's the structural support he added. In print 2 and 4, the structural support has been taken off. In print 2, there was, once the structural support was added and the arms were tried to print, the extended arms were tried to print, it just did not work out. It was because of the thickness and the angle of the arms, it got messed up, I guess is the best way I can say it. Something happened with the printer, and just there were too many factors of the design that just didn't allow printing to go well. Same with print 3. There were issues with the extended arms. Print 4, luckily, very luckily, we were able to get the design printed. I was very excited once I found out we had like a final print that did work out, as you can see here. So we were able to get it printed with enough structural support, but it overall, the prototype was not easy to print and it would not have lasted long. It needed some adjustments. So in the final design, you can see I increased the thickness of the entire mask. The nose piece was shortened, excuse me, the nose piece was shortened by 10 millimeters. The angled extended arms were redesigned to be printed separately, and there was an added cylinder for them to be placed in. You can see here, I think this is this one. You can see here I have these. These are able to be removed. So these were printed separately, and you just place them into the design. I eliminated the angle on this one because I found that the angle provided more issues than it did help. So I just got rid of the angle. The results. So as I mentioned, I tested this design. Well, this specific design I tested by 3D printing the model that I created on the Tinkercad website, and I placed it on my face with the adjoining standard masks. The testing for this was not like a duration of time. It was just placing it on my face, seeing what needed to be changed, and continuing on. There was no long like process of testing for it. It was more finding what would be the most comfortable, what would be the most comfortable for somebody with a sensory issue that to just completely eliminate as much contact with the face as I could. While testing, I considered safety, durability, sensory friendliness, as well as comparing this specific one to the prototype and all the other masks before it. The final design still has a safety risk with the space between the mask and the face, excuse me. There's still too much of a gap. This is due to the way the standard masks is attached to the design. The only comfortable way to attach the mask to the design is by wrapping the sides of the mask around the back of the design. I did consider putting some type of hook out farther out on the mask, but it just wouldn't have worked because the way standard masks are designed, the length of it is just not long enough to wrap around the sides and safely cover the entire face. So that is one of the biggest issues I ran into, just trying to design it to a standard mask that was not meant to be, that was not designed to match my design, I guess. Overall, this design is not perfect. I would never call it perfect. And other solutions to improve the safety would need to be created before the mask should be used as a protective measure against COVID. At this stage of the design, I would not recommend it to anyone to wear as a safety precaution, especially since as in the conclusion, the safety was not tested. I'll talk about that in a second. For the conclusion. So going back to my main criteria or my objectives, I want it to be sensory friendly, accessible, and safe. I was able to make it sensory friendly by having it only touch the nose and the ears. I was able to make it accessible by designing it to fit a standard, more or less designing it to fit a standard surgical mask. And creating it with a 3D printer, which is publicly available in my town. Now, I am fully aware that 3D printers are not publicly available to everyone and not everywhere. Luckily for me, we do have 3D printers available in both the libraries right next to our two towns. Our towns are very close together. So the two towns right next to each other, both the libraries have publicly available 3D printers. Now, I did think about other ways that I might be able to create this design where not using a 3D printer is something that is more accessible, but there really is no other option. There's nothing more accessible and as durable as a 3D printer. The amount of 3D printers has grown greatly in the past 5 to 10 years, though. So that is helpful with the accessibility. And the safety, as I mentioned, I was unable to test the safety due to like a lack of materials and time. If I were to test the safety, I would have used, similar to the study I mentioned in my background research, I would have had an emitter and a receiver and used cough particles, but just based off of the research that I've read, it's just, it's not easy necessarily to test that, especially without the proper materials. And also within the safety, there's a gap between the face and the mask because of the way the mask wraps around the design. Overall, I was able to attain 2 of my main objectives, and I do wish to further improve the safety of this design for widespread use later on. I do not plan on stopping this project at all just because I presented and I wrote the paper and all that. I do plan on continuing this project because my like end goal is to just be able to help somebody out there who may be able to use this. So I don't plan on stopping, and I do plan on continuing. I have some ways that I'm planning on changing this in my discussion. If I were to do this differently, or if as I am continuing on, I hope to test the safety of the design. Figuring out how to do that will be a process, but I also wish to redesign the mask to I either want to redesign the mask to have full coverage of the face based off of a standard surgical mask, because so the way the mask is set up, this design that I have now really isn't the best for a standard surgical mask. So the best option with this design that I have right now, this one, is a sewing template that for a cloth mask that would be used to cover the structure, cover all sides of the face. You can see in the picture, that is something I sketched up. I just haven't had the chance to create it yet. But that is, I guess, my best solution to making this safer, creating something that would fit the design, because there's nothing out there that fits my design, creating my own thing that fits the design, I guess. Here are my references from my background research from earlier. And I would like to thank you for your time. I very much appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to what I have been doing, the project I've been working on, and I hope you have a wonderful day.